Hey everybody, in this video we're talking about training with low iron. In a recent video I talked about my struggles with low iron and we covered the symptoms of iron deficiency, and in that video I talked about how I cycle my training around my iron levels every month, and there was a lot of interest in that, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're mainly going to be talking about iron levels in terms of the menstrual cycle, but even if your iron levels are low for a reason other than your periods, you're still going to find this video helpful because I'm going to give you some tips for training with low iron, and I'm going to talk about the mind shift that I've had to make to deal with the frustration of low iron and having to take so many days off every month. Before we get into it, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Melanie from Female Fitness Systems, and on this YouTube channel we talk about fitness, nutrition, and longevity. We talk a lot about things that are happening to us when we hit our 40s and beyond. So if you're new here, consider subscribing so that you catch future videos from me. If you watched my previous video on low iron, you'll know that the reason that I struggle to keep my iron levels up is that I have very heavy periods now that I'm in my 40s. In that video, we talked about the symptoms of iron deficiency, including fatigue, dizziness, increased feelings of anxiety and sadness. We talked about some of the things that can happen to your heart, like hearing your heart thumping in your head and how your heart has to actually work harder when your iron is low. And basically, I've had all of these things happen to me at some point. And so if you are somebody who's struggling with low iron, I totally feel your pain. And obviously, one of the things that happens when your iron is low is that it can be really hard to train. And in fact, you may, like me, need to take some time off every month. So for me personally, on a good month, I might take about 3 or 4 days off from training, right around the heaviest days of my period, and maybe for a day or two afterwards when I know my iron level's really low. But on a bad month, I might have to take about 5 days off of training, and then I might need another 5 to 7 days after that for my iron levels to recover before I feel like I can actually go hard in the gym. So it can be extremely frustrating because that could be like 10 days or more a month where I just feel like junk and I can't train as hard as I want to. And so that's what we're going to talk about in this video. How do you deal with that? The first thing I had to do was shift how I felt about the whole thing. So for somebody like myself who absolutely loves to train, it's what makes me feel good every day. It's really hard to have such a long period of time off every month. And I really had to change the way I was thinking about things and find some kind of positive reason for it all. And what I did was start to think, well, this time of the month when I can't go to the gym is a time of the month where I can focus on rest and recovery, because honestly, the rest of the month, I just go like mad. I hardly ever take rests. I work really long hours. I rarely sit down and watch TV because I'm just go, go, go. And so I had to look at this time of the month as an opportunity to do things that I don't normally do, like lay in bed and catch up on series that I'm behind on and cuddle with my cat and take more afternoon naps. So that's the first thing I did, is find an opportunity in the fact that I couldn't go to the gym. I could focus on looking after myself in a different way. And the other shift that I had to make was to find a new way of training so that I could still get results given all of the time off I had to have every month. So traditionally in the fitness industry, there's a structure to how you train every week, every month, throughout the year. And I can't stick to that anymore now that I have heavy periods. I have to take these big chunks of time off every month because my energy is too low, because I have to let my iron levels recover. And so I had to create a whole new training cycle that worked for me and for where I was in life. And that's what I'm going to share with you for the rest of this video. Before we talk about my training cycle, you need to understand how your menstrual cycle affects your iron levels. So if you're somebody who has regular periods, your iron levels are probably going to be lowest right after your period, because that's when you've had the most blood loss throughout the month. And then, assuming you're doing everything right with your nutrition and your supplements, throughout the month, your iron levels should gradually come back up, and they should probably be highest right before your next period. And so it makes sense that your energy is going to follow that same cycle. It's going to be lowest right after your period. It's probably going to feel better mid-month, and when your iron levels are high, you're going to have more energy for training hard. And with that in mind, that's how I created my training cycle. After my period, I ease back into training knowing that my iron levels are really low. So on those first days back at the gym, I don't go hard with my training for a number of reasons. First of all, it feels really terrible to push myself hard when my iron levels are low. And second, what a lot of people don't realize is that training hard can further deplete your iron levels. So it doesn't make sense to go to the gym and go really hard when you're at a critical point with your iron and needing to get it up again. And then the other thing is that your heart is really impacted by low iron, and it has to work harder to pump oxygen around your body. That's something we talked about in that previous video I did on low iron. And so for me, doing anything that gets my heart rate up feels really awful at that time of the month. And so during that time when I'm easing back, what I do is I do shorter workouts. So I'll do about 4 exercises instead of 6 or 7. I never train to failure because that's going to deplete more of my body's resources, and my body's going to need to use more resources to recover. And the other thing that I do is I try not to get my heart rate up. So I would never do cardio. Sometimes I find it hard just to go for a walk. Anything that gets my heart rate up just doesn't feel good and makes me feel really tired afterwards. And when I am weight training, I'll take longer rests between sets. So I might rest for 90 seconds to 2 minutes just to give my body that extra time to recover. And so the overall workout isn't so hard on me. And one other thing that I do is I usually change the focus of my workout as well. So rather than focusing on hitting personal bests and that sort of thing, I might focus on having a posture workout, which is a little bit more gentle. I might focus on smaller muscle groups like my rear delts or my triceps. And then if I'm training legs, I might do more band work rather than heavy weights or things like lunges or squats, which again will really get my heart rate up. So throughout those days when I'm easing back in, the focus of my workouts is much different than it will be at the end of the month. And then throughout the month, as my iron levels come back up, I slowly increase the intensity of my workouts so that by mid-month, I'm pretty much back to normal. But the thing is that normal isn't really good enough for me, knowing that in a couple of weeks' time, I'm gonna have to take all that time off from the gym again. And so what I do is that last week before my period, when my iron levels are at their best every month and I'm feeling like I have the most energy, as I really train hard. I'm almost in an overtraining stage where I'm pushing for personal bests. I'm lifting really heavy and my workouts are longer than normal, to the point where I feel like when that rest comes around, when that period comes around again, I need to kick down for a couple of days. My body is really looking for it. So that's my training cycle. I ease back in after my period. I go really gentle. The focus of my workouts is different. Throughout the month, I slowly ramp up my intensity so that by the end of the month, I'm at my peak intensity for about a week, so that I really need that rest. The one other thing that I wanted to mention is rest days overall. So traditionally in the fitness industry, you'll have a rest day once or twice a week. Now that I have to take so much time off every month, I don't really have those traditional rest days anymore. If I feel tired, I might still go to the gym. I'll just have a slightly lighter workout or do something like a posture workout, which is just less intense overall. But I'll still go train, because for me mentally, it's just so many days off every month, which adds up to so many days off every year. I don't want to add additional rest days in throughout the month. Of course, if I'm going on vacation or something like that, I will take those rest days, but just for me mentally, overall, that's what works best for me. So I hope you found that idea of a training cycle helpful. Remember, you really will need a mind shift here. It is a time of life, if you are experiencing heavy periods, if you are in your 40s like me, where you really do need to work with the energy of your body and work with your cycles. I know it can be really frustrating. I'm gonna leave a link to a couple extra resources for you below this video. I'll link to my blog post, which is essentially an ultimate guide to iron supplementation, because it's really important that you get your iron supplementation right. And I'll also link to that other video on low iron if you haven't already watched it, as well as my heavy periods video. So those might also pop up on the screen here right about now. I'll also link to my online training and nutrition programs. If you want some help with those sorts of things, you can pop over to my website, femalefitnesssystems.com, and check those out. I'll also answer any questions you have in the comments. I love hearing from you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.